Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on women in tourism. Following the resounding success of ICRTH in 2021, we are really pleased to see you again this year. And for those of you who are attending for the first time, thank you for coming to our session. We have two session chairs here. Firstly, we have Associate Professor Lennis Eslin, who is based in the Philippines, and myself, Karen Tan, who is based out of the United States. Well, both Eslin and myself, we are females. Both of us face similar issues and challenges unique to our gender and specific to tourism and hospitality, irrespective of our location. But rather than hearing from Eslin and myself, we have three outstanding speakers to talk about women in tourism. To start us off, we have Dr. Nisha Abdul-Bakar. Dr. Nisha is a management consultant, corporate trainer, and academic with more than 25 years of experience in tourism, hospitality, and events. Dr. Nisha is also the co-founder of World Women Tourism, which is an international network of women and organizations in tourism and hospitality. Combining her professional experiences with a spirited passion for women's empowerment and gender equity, she would like to share with us the leadership lessons that she has learned from women leaders in our industry. Over to you, Dr. Nisha.
Thank you so much for the team at ICRTH for inviting me on this. Let me deep dive into the topic today, which is very, very close to my heart, and I'm very passionate about it. So the topic is on women leadership in tourism, and I'll be focusing on selected women leaders that I have encountered in the period of post-COVID and some of the leadership lessons that we have learned from them. So this is the outline. I will just touch a little bit on the current status and the challenges of women's presence and status in our industry. And from my podcast, which is Women We Watch in Tourism, some leadership lessons. So this is the status of our tourism industry. 54% of all people employed in the tourism are women. So in the lower rung, as the entry point, we have so many women, but as it goes up, the trajectory of women goes up, we find that there are lesser and lesser women at the top. So 23% of all tourism ministers are women. UNWTO has reported that. And we've also found that there is a scarcity of women in leadership positions in the corporate sector as well, in the tourism, hospitality, and events. Another worrying trend is the recession, which is the recession impacts on women. And we have found that there has been a disproportionate impact on women more than men. And also the current impacts is going to probably outlast the recession itself. So it's really, really critical that we begin to address some of the problems, inequalities that are facing women. So from our research in the last 2.5 years, and also to speaking to the industry practitioners, we have found that these are some big problems, and the underrepresentation is a very big problem because there are less and less women at the top as role models, as mentors, and as sponsors. And also mostly at the base of the occupational pyramid, and even in businesses or micro businesses, they are largely in the hospitality and provision of hospitality services, and not so much in the larger supply chain. And there are big fundamental constraints to women's entrepreneurship as well, in terms of financial constraint, soliciting for funds, as well as the know-how in terms of running businesses as well. And the last one is a little bit more worrying because it is about very few women actually desire and aspire to lead. A Stanford study shows that women, in fact, self-select themselves out of the career track to go up right to the top. So in consideration of all this, we realize that it is important for us to share inspiring stories. While we are talking about empowering of women, there are a lot of empowered women already. You know, what do we do with the knowledge that is already accumulated, especially in the COVID period, we saw a lot of women who were exemplary leaders leading our industry into very, very innovative services as well as solutions. We find that it's important to give visibility to these empowered women, and there are very few platforms that give visibility to women from the tourism, events, and hospitality sector. And we find that it is also critical to share some of these insights which are very peculiar to women. And our focus actually is not just about women in general. We were actually taking the gaze from a Asian women, Middle Eastern women, basically minority women, and women of color. We thought that was really important because most of the leadership lessons that we have learned is usually from a male-centric or a Western-centric perspective. So let me share with you the podcast that we did in the last 1.5 years called Women We Watch, and some of the exemplary leadership that we have learned from the women. So these were 25 women that I had a very deep dive discussion with, and they were amazing in every different part of the world. And you can see they were from Bhutan to Sri Lanka, Dubai, Peru, United States, Malaysia. So a huge, huge range in terms of geographical location. The very first lesson that I want to share here is that each and every woman that I saw had modeled their way. They had very strong beliefs and what they wanted to stand up for. They found their voice in a space where women find it very difficult to find their voice and even to stand up. They decided to become visible. It was a very conscious, intentional visibility that they chose. And they felt that it was important to garner the right and the respect to lead. So one of the ladies that I spoke to from India, she did Planet Able, where she decided to give tourism accessible to disabled people. The one on the left that you see, Marinelle, she was a human rights advocate. She gave up a very lucrative job and she flew to Peru, and she decided to advocate for the rights of women trekkers. Now she's advocating for porters and women trekkers across the world. What you see on the left-hand side, she went to Mongolia to give a voice to women who are running community-based tourism in Mongolia, and she's teaching them English to share their narratives as stories throughout the world. The second thing that I realized about these women leaders is that they found it very, very important to have a shared vision. They decided to dream and decided to put across their dream to the world, right? And they decided to imagine what was possible beyond the jobs that they were doing. So if you see Mar Pages on the right, she was a Google employee and she was doing really, really well. She decided to give that up and she said, I want to lead solo female travelers across the world. I want to give a huge community. And now she's got close to, I think, 300,000-400,000 women who are inspired to travel solo. She's advocating for our whole tourism ecosystem to enable women to travel solo. And she's amazing in the initiatives that she is doing to give the confidence to women to travel by allowing the ecosystem to support that. I see another lady, Sarah Khan, and she is now heading Travel is Better in Color, because journalism is very much a white man's space. And now she's advocating through her journalistic endeavors to allow colored women to be represented in journalism. And the lady at the bottom, she's amazing, Nikki. She is inspiring women in certain parts of the world who want to be travel guides, but who never had the opportunity to be travel guides. So she's going in there to shape and to give them the confidence to be able to be professional tour guides in spaces which never allowed them to be tour guides. So amazing vision that is inspiring a whole community of people. The third thing I realized about these leaders is that they decided to be daring and challenge the process. So I have an academic, Anna Maria. She is an academic, is a very renowned academic professor. She decided to say that I will not follow the crowd of publish or perish. I want to publish what I love to publish. And she wrote books like I Am Man, and she talks about gender, and she talked about gender differentiation and the inequities and so forth over there, leading academia to think about things which they are passionate about and to write about that. Naksha is a lady called Nisha Ramesh, and she gave up an amazing financial lucrative job in the smack of COVID. And she said, I want to challenge the process. I want to bring culture of of very, very interesting destinations across the world and bring that culture through food. And she did that through using chef-inspired cuisine and culinary kits. And she brought that in amazing packaging. She's working with tourism bureaus to bring their culture in an amazingly different way. And she's challenging the current paradigms of how culture should be portrayed. And for her to give up a career, she was challenging the process. And she was willing to be brave risk taker. The fourth one is that they had the ability to get others to act. They were there to foster collaboration with the larger community. They strengthened other people by looking at the need to move and to change our industry. Anita Mandirata, I know she's one of the speakers for this conference. She's so amazing kind of work that she is doing. She gets a community to understand the need to make changes. And she, in the smack of COVID, she brought up this whole conversation called Rise and Rise Weekly to inspire young practitioners, people who are scared to join the industry in the smack of the COVID, and students. And she did dialogues about what is going on. She gave hope and optimism via her Rise Weekly to people like us who are in the industry. So Myra Isaacs at the bottom, she did the town hall, recovery town hall, by bringing leaders across the world, accumulating their insights and say, what can we do collectively in this industry to bring us out of this COVID? She brought insights and intelligence and even topics on blockchain and crypto into our industry for the very first time, for us to dialogue about innovation as we come and build back better after the COVID. I love the last one, which is all about encouraging the heart. I found that every single leader of the 25 leaders I spoke to, they were working from their heart. And they were talking about empathetic leadership, transformational leadership, and the idea of authenticity, which is so much relevant to women's leadership. And they were shifting and getting their teams and communities within their countries to think deeply about how to collaboratively make changes to our industry. I have Mala Dorasamy. She is from Africa, but in Malaysia, shifting the landscape of events and MyTech in Malaysia. I have Nita Lakshmandas, who is leading service because she feels that service is so critical. It's got to come from the heart. And the focus is about employees. Its focus is about the customer. And she is shifting the landscape in Singapore to think about service excellence. They all operate from the heart. So key takeaways that I want to share from some of these 25 women that I met. Aradhana, she is fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And everything that you hear about her and what she speaks about is to elevate the trajectory of women. She's got a bigger passion. She's got a big dream, is to shift shift women up. It's a tribe of women that she's trying to move ahead, and she's using her voice in every single platform to create a space for voices that are not heard. So Myra believes that it's important to be visible. Don't shy away, get your brand out there. You get the awards, you get the visibility, be in newspapers, be in forums like this, just be everywhere so that you'll be taken seriously and you'll become visible as a voice. I love Shahiran. She is the first Middle Eastern women to be a GM in Dubai. And she was the first to also be a woman in the aviation. She went for aviation industry. And she decided to do differently because she felt that it is something that it's not been experimented in her part of the world. And she wanted to be the women to lead the rest of them and to be a role model for the rest of the Middle Eastern women out there. I like Anna Maria because she says, follow your passion, don't follow the crowd. Do what your heart tells you to do. And if you write because you have a purpose for writing, and write because your heart tells you these are important topics for the world to listen to. Shromal, she leads Jet Wings properties all over Sri Lanka. And she says, it's important to have the courage. When you are at the table, when nobody gives you the attention and your voice is silenced and muted by everyone else, make sure that you have the courage to make your voice louder than everybody else. Have the courage to show up. Do not shy away. Even if everyone pushes you to the back, move forward and have the courage to lead the pack, because the world needs more of you. And the last important takeaway is on financial literacy. Every single business entrepreneur I speak to talks about the importance of women to be independent and to have financial literacy, whether we are going to climb up the ladder or going to lead our businesses, be independent and have the financial literacy for us to be able to stand out, get economic independence so that we can lead the pack of women who is behind us. So amazing takeaways from every single women leader. So finally, I just want to say this from Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, Santiago, without women, we can't have tourism or economic recovery as a whole for that matter. Supporting women to unleash their full potential is in the interest of all of us. With that, I would like to thank every one of you for the attention that you have given me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nisha, for presenting such an inspiring talk for all of our participants. And now let me introduce to you our second panel speaker. So Dr. Vanessa Gayatri Gauri-Sunkar is a citizen of Mauritius, and she holds a PhD which cuts across 3 disciplines, namely tourism management, communication, and marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome the Associate Professor of Anand National University, India, Dr. Vanessa Gayatri Gauri-Sunkar. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Lenise. Thank you, everybody. So this is going to be the title, The Cost of Success for Women in Academia. So I'm going to talk mainly about women in academia, though whatever I would say might also apply to women in other sectors. These are my different roles. I think Lenise has already introduced me. I'm not going to go through that. But that said, probably you would see a few things that probably she did not mention. For example, Wiley.
Sorry, Dr. Vanessa, will you be able to make it full screen?
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe start again from the beginning.
Is it okay?
Full screen.
Is it okay? Is
Yeah.
it okay?
You can start from the first slide again at full screen mode.
Yes. Is it okay?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about the cost of success for women in academia, as I was stating earlier. And I think it's important for you to also know a bit about my different roles in academia. And you would see that I am spread, I would say, around the world, a bit everywhere. So which means I got the opportunity to see what is happening around in academia. And I myself, I can say that I'm a case study here. And on and off, you're going to see that I'm going to share my own examples. I find it a bit more interesting because it's about my life. It's about what I have been living and what I still live as a woman working in academia. So let's have a look at statistics. I'm sure that if you go online or you read magazines, newspaper, you will already see all those statistics. But why I have put these statistics here, just to highlight, For example, you would see that the percentage of female tenured faculty hovers between 20 to 33% in US and EU. And then you also see that the second point, you would see that women occupy few senior academic positions in Belgium, Germany, UK. So these are some of the examples to show to you already that women, they might be occupying academic position, but when we talk about the senior position in terms of promotion, in terms of making them climb up the ladder, it becomes a bit less and less and less. And you would see a bit down there, 39 out of the top 200 institutions in the world are currently led by women, which confirm low representation of women in high-level research and management position in higher education. And for those who might know, especially people who are working in academia, the ladies, you would know that working in academia does not only mean just sitting in an office and just, doing the paperwork. It's more than that. We need to go outside. We need to do research. We need to see students. We need to participate in conferences. There are so many things that we have to do, and we work around the clock. Many times I say to people see that academia, you have got academic freedom. This lady is very free. She can go to the university anytime she wants, and then she can come back home. But this is not the real truth. The real truth that we are really having academic freedom, but in fact, we are not free. We keep on working. And where do we have an issue, especially that our work is also being transferred to our home. And this is where we have issues many times. Now, this is just a small, like a figure that you can see here. Already you would see that the pink one is women, the blue one is men, and you can see visually, it's so apparent that the men, they are much higher as compared to the women. And we are talking about a report which on Women Power Gap Initiative, and it's coming from America. So already de visu, as we say in French, visually you would see that men are always dominating, especially in management position. Now, we have got a study from Chung 2021, the eye-openers I call that. We say that there is an increasing enrollment of female undergraduate students across the world. Now we are still talking about the university, but this has given the false impression of increased women representation at other levels in academia, which means that sometimes when you're trying to see academia in itself, you would see, oh, we have got so many women, it's increasing. But then when you go deeper into the study, you realize, yes, we have got women, but what about those women? We're talking about success here. Today, I want to talk about success. So what is success? Success means that you are enrolled in an institution, and then after some time, you are expected to move further the ladder. You want to be promoted. You want to get all those possibilities, for example, research grant, for example, participating in conferences, possibility to be considered for promotion. So these are the things that we consider as women in academia. And we are realistic, like any other person. We say to ourselves that today we have entered a university, we have been recruited. We expect that after 1 or 2 years, we might be having a promotion. We expect to have a promotion if you are working very hard, just like our male colleagues. So usually you would see this is a very long slide, but the main point about it is that fewer women climb the ladder of academic progression all the way up to senior position, especially in certain institutions and certain disciplines. I am not going to say certain, I'm going to say in most of them. Because when I take my own example, for example, at the University of Africa, I can say, I can use I can name the university because I've been there. So I can see, when you see around, most of the dean, they are just men. You are not able to see any woman. So what is the situation? What might have happened? So what happens in Africa, in the place where I was, it was in Nigeria exactly. So I think the women were not given the possibility to move further the ladder. Why? Because whenever there was a promotion exercise, the conditions were such that it would have been favorable for men, not really for women. We are going to see that in a while, in details. So this is just one example. Now, this is some realities. HEI means higher education institution. So leadership is significant in higher education institution. And in universities is different from other corporate organizations. When we talk about leadership, when we talk about success, let's say, for example, you're talking about success in an organization. If you want to become the big CEO, it means that you will have to do your effort, it is true. But then you have got a team working with you. Whereas at the university level, you want to become a dean, it's vested in one single person. It's your effort, it's your publications, it's the number of grants that you get, and so many things related to you. Now, you as a woman, you are wearing so many hats, as you can see in the picture here. So it becomes quite difficult, and we have to be realistic enough. In most of the houses that you would go, you would visit, especially when I'm talking about families, the men and the women and the kids, the responsibility, it's something very automatic. The responsibility is mostly on the woman. The men might be helping you, but for some unexplained reason, you will always have some kind, you have that pressure that I think I have a bit more responsibilities. You would be the last person leaving the house. You would be checking if everything is fine. The men will be already sitting in the car and waiting for you. You understand my point? This is just an example that even we try to make the world equal, somewhere for unexplained reason, we still see that the women, they still have some more responsibilities, probably something which is coming from such a long time. So there is also some other realities you might be knowing. The obstacles for women are present at all stages in academia, including hiring, letters of recommendation, student evaluation, peer reviews, awarding of grants, funding, request for service, promotion. So these are different obstacles that we see as academia, as academic women. I have even seen an example where I have seen people discussing, it was a management team. I was in that team and I felt really very bad when they were talking, when they were doing the selection exercise. They were saying that, this woman is very young and this woman is a bit older. And then we have got the men also in terms of the candidates. They were favorite candidates. So look at their reasoning. They were saying that I think we should not take this woman. She's quite young. Probably she will get pregnant. She will take a maternity leaves and she will go. Whereas this, if we take that woman, we see that she has already got 2 kids. So which means that we will not have any issue regarding taking leaves, or we can take that other man. So just imagine. So which means that you might be a very talented woman, but if you're young and you show on your CV that probably you're not married or you'll get married, or probably you still have young kids, probably there is a possibility for you to get pregnant again. Look at their thinking. So this is an example. So there is also something else. Women are very underrepresented and underpaid as well, underrepresented and underpaid as well. When women are hired, they are generally funneled into lower paying non-tenure track position, as if they have got a kind of, they underestimate women most of the time. And let me tell you something. In terms of negotiation as well, let's say, for example, I'm working in one country and I have been recruited in another country. They will have the tendency to see my salary slip. They want to base themselves on that salary slip. Okay, so this organization, they are paying that amount. We can give you a slightly more. They are not going to see your talent. They're going to see the salary slip, which means that you as a woman, you cannot even negotiate your salary. They're going to base themselves on the previous salary. And then there's also something which I also experience as a person, as someone moving from one university to another university, in terms of promotion and in terms of the talk. In terms of promotion, they say that being a woman, we need to give you some more time. I could not understand that. So what does this mean? Being a woman, is it a sin to be a woman? Or does it mean that being a woman means that probably I'm a bit weaker, I won't be able to survive all the challenges, which makes no sense, because I feel that I work a lot. And I always say, I feel if we put the term man as something which is very rigorous, something which is very strong, which is brave, I would say I am a man in the body of a woman. If we say that man is equal to this and this and this, because I don't want to take the word man as a benchmark here. You understand my point? Now, when I'm talking about this point, I will also cite another example. Recently, I had a trip to Mauritius. I am in India right now. I went to a trip in Mauritius. I was engaged in an overseas mission. So my role was to facilitate my vice chancellor, who is a man, to talk with all the stakeholders. And I was having another man as an assistant to me, yes, a consultant and assistant to me, but the role was mine. You will not imagine people. In all those meetings, I ended up just sitting and looking at them. They were just talking. Every time you open your mouth, you say something, you start talking, you're not able to even finish your sentence. They start talking and they start their talk. You could see it was so apparent. It was a real case study for me, a very recent one. It's only 2 weeks ago, where I could see how men is still dominating. They are still talking and talking, as if when you open your mouth to say something, they would stop you indirectly in a subtle manner. Yeah, at our university, we have done this, we have done that, we have got grants. So you're not given the chance to talk. Unless you are, the one, as we say in French, a pentade. In French, we say pentade, the lady who talks a lot. So you have to be the lady who talks a lot to be able to make your voice being heard. Let me move further. We have got still some realities, as we have seen. There is something in the cost. We have to talk about the pro-male bias. I have just talked about it. The pro-male bias, which means that already in their mind, when people, they want to recruit, it's in their mind. It's already it's something which is very difficult to change. It will take time, or probably it might never change. We might be doing lots of effort, writing lots of reports that we should do this, we should do that. But at the end of the day, I have seen men talking in public, ministers talking in public, ministers of women and gender talking in public. When they go back home, they are beating their woman. They are sitting in the sofa. please bring my food, please bring my this, bring my that. The woman will have to give. And that man was just giving some lectures. You know, you need to respect your woman. When you go back home, you should do sharing. You should be cooking. And that same person, when he goes back inside the house, he becomes the typical, you know, man, as we say. And then we have got a report on Women Matter. Look at this report. The report says that one company's performance indicator was unfailing availability and total geographical mobility. It was a criteria that was set for a promotion. And obviously, if you're a woman, you have got kids, your kids are attached with you, which means that if you want to move from one place to another, because the babies, the kids are attached to you, you have to move as a package. You need to make sure that, okay, I'm moving. I need to make sure that I will have someone to look after the baby. I will have someone, I will be able to have a school. My colleagues went through that problem. I had a colleague in India. When I was working in Nigeria, I went there because I've got grown-up kids, so I don't have these issues. So she was having a kid, and that boy, 9 years old, it was her responsibility to make sure that the boy is getting a school there. And both husband and wife were working. And then at the end of the day, you know what happened? Today, now itself, the lady had to come back to India with the kid, and the man is still working in Nigeria. And he has even got a promotion. So, which means that the woman, the lady, the husband and the wife, they're compromised here because, okay, we are a same family. If you're getting a better position, even if I don't get it, it's fine. I'm still going to look after the kids. So already we have this type of mentality. It could have been the woman. The man could have stayed back in India with the kid. Look after your son. Let your talented woman, your talented wife go climb up the ladder. But it did not happen. The lady had to stay back with the son, and she was more talented. And the husband is still in Nigeria today. So this is something which happens, and something which is pro-male bias. We have got something called subtle sexism. We talk about sexism a lot. Subtle sexism is just what I have said, something which happens in a very subtle way. In a very subtle way. You will see, I'm not going to really read all those, but you would see, for example, the laws. Women are expected only to tick all the promotion boxes and constantly balance being assertive and being kind, one of the most common unconscious gender biases that all people have. Whereas in practice, men get promoted in academia when they match the stereotypical patterns we unconsciously expect. For example, men are expected to be known worldwide for their research, have good business connections, because the women, they don't have enough time. The little time that will be left for them after working, they need to connect to see with the family, the kids. Whereas the men will have the tendency to connect. They will be sitting on the mobile phone, talking to this person, that person. They are building their network. So this was a criteria, and this criteria was absolutely not correct. Because you cannot set a criteria that you need to have this and this in terms of which is favorable for men, as you can see here.
Hi,
This is
Dr. Vanessa.
Yes.
Hi, I think we don't have much time. Maybe we can wrap up the presentation.
Yes,
Thank you.
No, but it's okay. So we have got an example here, Howard and Heidi. So you know what happened? Let me explain this story to you. There was a kind of exercise, and they decided to make it covert. So they did not put the name of the candidate. Once they put Howard, 7 times they would Heidi. So already in this case study, it shows that when they saw the man, the name, it is a man's name. So everything was different. As soon as they changed it to a woman name, things again went even more different in the sense that the woman was not given the same position as the man. This is an example. And then we have got also some other example where we have got unconscious biases of decision makers. Now, we have also got something called linguistic sexism. Sometimes the words that are being used make you feel undermined. We have got something called overt sexism. So it's all in the line of sexism. Probable factors, as you can see, I'm sure that I have been able to elaborate on most of them. And we have got some cost of success explaining stories. These are the ladies, probably you would see. I have been told to wait until my children are older, wait until my spouse is ready. I suppose this means that the stereotype is that women should wait. So this lady is not happy about this. We have got some other stereotypes where women are talking. This is a dean, she's a dean, Wanda Kosten, and she's talking about how her struggles as a woman, the cost. We have got Kathy Douglas as well, and she's talking about struggling with a family of two. And then we have got Amy, she's a dean also. She's also voicing out the same problems. So finally, there's someone, this is a different story, especially for the Muslim women. They are not even able to go outside and, conduct research grants and things like that. It's even more difficult for them. And this is a good practice which has been proposed by EU, where they are, for example, putting a certain position just for women. And then I would say that I would conclude very quickly. I would always say to academia, to women working in academia, that we women, we are like Tibaka, like this. You never know how strong she is until she gets in hot water. This is coming from Roosevelt. And I also feel that we have to create an academia for all. So which means it has to be equal to all, even men or women, it has to be equal to all. And this is my favorite quote, my own. I always say I'm a man in the body of a woman, because there's so many struggles I have gone through. So that is all. I hope that I have been able to be on time. I'm so sorry. There were so many stories to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vanessa. We really enjoyed the sharing that we just had now. Based on your presentation, we still really live in a patriarchal society, and specifically in the academia. But regardless of that, we know that our nature, our nature as a multitasker in the academia is sometimes viewed as disadvantageous. But of course, they wouldn't know how multitasking or how this being multitasking is an asset to the universities that we are in right now. And see, all of us here in the in this recording session are all women, and we thrive in our respective universities because we contribute something to our organizations. And with that, thank you very much, Dr. Vanessa, for sharing with us your thoughts on this. And now I would be glad to introduce to you our third panel speaker. Our third panel speaker is the program lead of the Institute of Social Studies Trust. Monica joined ISST as a research fellow in April 2018. She holds a PhD and Master in Philosophy degree from the Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all welcome the program lead of the Institute of Social Studies Trust, Dr. Monica Banerjee. Good morning, Dr. Monica.
Okay, so I'll start. Greetings everyone. I'm Dr. Monica Banerjee. I'm a research fellow and a program lead at the Institute of Social Studies Trust, New Delhi. The paper that I'm going to present today is part of a larger study that we are conducting on tourism and work. And the study basically uses a framework which kind of connects the place, the tourism destination with its people and the kind of livelihood opportunities it presents. It uses a framework which tends to connect how tourism, tourism understanding or tourism imagery of a destination is kind of connected with the kind of work opportunities that comes out across, and also the kind of work opportunities people are able to take on. And that's with, and obviously when we look at work opportunities, it's important to look at work opportunities in a gendered manner. So what opportunities are men looking at? What opportunities are women looking at? This particular paper is based on the case study of a small temple town, a very temple town with a population of only about 25 to 30,000 families in central India, state of Madhya Pradesh. It's called Khajuraho. The temples in this city are almost, they've been there for since the 11th century, and they were built during the time of the Chandela dynasty. So I'm going to start with my presentation. The presentation is titled Tourism Imagery and Women's Work, Recognizing Barriers and Laying Pathways. So just to understand where Khajuraho is and, what kind of a place it is. So Khajuraho is all in all a tourist destination. When I say all in all a tourist destination, what I mean to say is that in terms of livelihood, Khajuraho is nothing else other than tourism. It's right bang in the middle of India. The region is called the Bundelkhand region. It's a very dry, arid, geographically a dry, arid region. So even earlier, before tourism became the most popular livelihood opportunity, agriculture was the only means. However, since the 60s or the 50s, in fact, even before 60s, about mid 40s and early 50s is when tourism really took its kind of baby steps in this small town. And the temples have always been there, of course, but temples were discovered by the then colonial government in India, and slowly it became, the news of these temples went across globally, and slowly, so from the beginning of mid 40s, 50s, tourists started coming in to see these magnificent temples. Now, so the tourists have been coming, and there's been a huge footfall in terms of foreigners. I mean, these temples are extremely popular with people coming from abroad, and not so much with the domestic population. Actually, at least not in the past. Now, domestic population has started coming more, but earlier it was more of the population from the West. And so they've been really popular in that sense. But if you see Khajuraho, apart from the temples, there is hardly any development or done in the town. So it seems as if, though it's called a town, it's really kind of stuck between being a village and a town. So you would find very restaurants and cafes serving continental food, but you would also find hand pump where a queue of women and children will be filling water, which is usually a case when you visit a village. So it's kind of difficult to understand what is it really. And this is even in 2022. That is what I'm talking about. So apart from agriculture, there's nothing else. It was in 80s that Khajuraho got its UNESCO World Heritage Site a designation, and since then there've been several norms that the town has to follow. But even before that, because the Archaeological Survey of India came into the city much earlier and started looking after the temples and took charge of the responsibility of ensuring that they stay in good condition, industries were completely banned. So there are no industries, there are no other working livelihood opportunities for people of Khajuraho apart from tourism. So nothing is really made there. The schools and colleges are also, there's no college. There are primary schools, but there are also several, in severely dilapidated conditions. There is no big hospital in the town. What you will find is basically a primary health center, which is usually the case with villages in India. But in Khajuraho also, there's usually a primary health center. There's only a primary health center, which is there. And if even for a slightly complicated pregnancy, people have to go to the nearby town, which is almost 2 hours away, for any kind of complication, any kind of health condition, which is not just fever and very basic health care requirement. So that is what the city is. So, as I said, it's in the Bundelkhand region, very arid, geographically a dry area. Rainfall is a huge problem. The temperature during the month of May to June rises up to 50 degrees. So it's really very dry. But even in December and January, it's really cold. So it's extreme weather conditions, a very dry, arid area, very difficult to grow anything in this place. And hence, because of these reasons, it is also one of the few places which was severely impacted by the COVID pandemic. So In terms of development, as I said, it's highly underdeveloped, and therefore, in terms of human development indicators, also it's very fairly low. And in terms of social groups and how the social milieu of Khajuraho, we find that it's extremely feudal, and the caste, which is basically caste norms, which are kind of makes a division between people, um, uh, uh, in terms of very similar to how racism works. Casteism is a very common feature in all parts of India, but here you would see that caste-based discrimination, caste-based norms and patriarchal norms in terms of women and men is very starkly dominating the society. So the residential areas of Khajuraho also very clearly demarcated in terms of the which caste live where. And in terms of religion also, we find that there's a clear demarcation between where Hindus live and where Muslims live. Okay. However, so this is the picture of Khajuraho, but then this is also a city, a town, which is, yes, it is UNESCO World Heritage Site, but for what? So it is, these temples are not temples in terms of the way we understand temple, a religious site. These temples are seen as a sex temple. They've been titled as sex temples sometimes. They've also, so these are stone temples, which with very intricate carving all around the walls. This is mainly, so Khajuraho has temples in 3 locations. It is the Western temples, which are the main temples of Khajuraho, where you would find 3 big temples, which have more than 10%, more 10 to 20%, sculptures, as you can see on the left side of my slide, very intricately carved human bodies in very erotic postures. So Kama Sutra and eroticism has been depicted through many of the statues which are sculpted around these temples, and in a way, in different ways, guides, when you go to Khajuraho, they tend to represent or explain the temples. But what really comes out is that these temples basically try to tell the stories of people living then, and in a way, while even other things like dancing, singing, fighting, war situations, marriages, those have also been depicted on these walls. But apart from that, sexual activity between men and women, Kama Sutra has also been depicted. So in a way, to say that Kama Sutra or eroticism is a way of life, just like marriage, childbirth, cooking, cleaning, all of the fighting, all of these other things are. So the temples that way are kind of giving an understanding of the kind of society India was in that time, and the kind of thinking process that India had at that point of time. However, what we understand in terms of today's understanding of how these temples, so when we go to Khajuraho, we see that these temples are extremely popular with globally they are extremely popular, and there is a huge footfall, especially from the West, starting from the 40s and 50s, and constantly increasing. And now also domestic population since the 2010 onwards. The local people do not see these temples representing their culture. As I said, that Khajuraho is being in a Bundelkhandi region, is an extremely patriarchal, feudal society. And within that, these symbols of eroticism, the symbols of Kama Sutra, somewhere kind of does not, stay in harmony with the social norms that people in Khajuraho follow. Hence, what do we see? We see that while people in Khajuraho, work as guides, show these temples to tourists, they work as souvenir sellers and sell very, they sell souvenirs which are depicting some of these sculptures, especially the erotic sculptures. We also find vendors selling postcards with only the erotic sculptures pictures on them, and not the other pictures, or not the Jain temples which do not have any such sculptures. Obviously, there has been a kind of a understanding that this is what we need to sell to be able to bring more and more tourists to the town. However, at the same point of time, we find that people also understand that this is not a representation of us. So there is a constant othering of the temple. So when they talk about the temple, they talk about the temple as something which is there for economic reasons, but it does not represent them or their society or their culture. These are not the temples where local people go. These are not the temples where, local community goes to party or husband, wife go and visit. These are not temples which families can visit together. So they are understood, or for any kind of religious activity either. So they are understood as revenue generating, a very livelihood focused resource, and which cannot be understood as sacred from any angle. And therefore, the temples, while they represent a certain kind of culture that India definitely had, is constantly in a tug with what Khajuraho and Khajuraho's community wants to represent it as.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monica, for sharing us your thoughts and inspiring all of our participants for this session. And for the 3 panel speakers that we have listened to. And now we will be having some announcements. So thank you for joining again this session. And this session recording will be made available at the official website, and e-certificates of attendance will be issued to delegates to complete a post-conference survey. So please do not forget to access the survey through our website, and the survey will be closed after 1 week. So for more information about ICRTH 2022 and other conference sessions, please visit our webpage. And for any queries about ICRTH 2022, please feel free to contact us via icrth2022@responsibleborneo.com. And at this point, we will be beginning with our Q&A session. So our chat box is open for all of your questions. Thank you very much.